and I'm hoping we get a quorum. All right, it is 12:45. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the Commission on Chicago Landmarks regular meeting, Thursday, November 4th. I'm going to do the roll call, of which, when I call your name, if you could confirm that you can see and hear me, that would be great. Vice Chair Commissioner Jekowitz.
Here, and I can hear and see you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cox is not here yet. Commissioner Burns.
Present, I can see and hear you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hughes.
Present, I can see and hear you.
Thank you. Commissioner Osmond.
Present, I can see and hear you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ponce does not seem to be here. And Commissioner Tolliver.
Present, I can see and hear you.
Thank you, sir. And I am Ernie Wong. We do have a quorum. Last year, Governor Pritzker signed Public Act 101-0640, making certain amendments to the Open Meetings Act so that we, along with other boards and commissions, can continue to host virtual meetings during this COVID-19 public health emergency, provided that certain conditions are met. One of those conditions is that I, as head of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks, determined that an in-person meeting of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks and its permanent review committee are not practical or prudent. I want to make sure our virtual meeting meets all the conditions of the Open Meetings Act as amended. Therefore, I am making a determination pursuant to Section 7E2 of the Open Meetings Act that an in-person meeting of this Commission on Chicago Landmarks and its permanent review committee is not practical or prudent. Similarly, I'm making a determination pursuant to Section 7E5 that because of the disaster is declared by the governor, it is unfeasible for at least one member of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks or its chief administrative officer or its chief legal officer to be physically present at the meeting place for either meeting. Pursuant to a resolution adopted by the Commission on Chicago Landmarks on June 4th, 2020, regarding the chairman's emergency rulemaking powers, I issued emergency rules governing the conduct of remote public commission meetings and provisions for remote public participation effective January 19th, 2021. These rules were posted on the Commission's website. In line with those emergency rules, today's regular Commission meeting is a virtual meeting being simulcast to the general public via live streaming. Commission meetings have been held virtually since May of last year. Meetings are structured to minimize the chances for technical difficulties. Members of the general public have been encouraged to submit written statements in advance of the meeting, and these have been posted on the Commission's website and are available for viewing during the virtual meeting at www.chicago.gov/CCL. Members of the public desiring to speak at today's meeting were required to register before the meeting, and verbal statements by the public for all agenda items will take place at the beginning of the meeting. Applicants and their representatives, as well as aldermen, were asked to contact staff if they desired to speak, and they will be able to do so after the staff presentation on the specific project. 3 members of the general public signed up to speak as of the deadline of 12:45 p.m. on Tuesday, November 2nd, and were provided instructions regarding how to do so. I would like to call upon these people now. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Begin by stating your name and the association you represent, if any, for the record. 1 person signed up to speak on agenda item 2, the DPD report for the Seth Warner House, and we'd like to hear from Ward Miller, Mr. Miller.
Good afternoon, Chairman Wong. Can you hear me?
Sure can. Thank you, sir.
Okay, well, good afternoon, and to all the members of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks. I'm Ward Miller, Executive Director of Preservation Chicago. We at Preservation Chicago fully support the report from the Department of Planning and Development, the staff recommendation, and your consideration of a Chicago landmark designation of the Seth Warner House located at 631 North Central Avenue in Chicago. The Seth Warner House is a remarkable structure, almost embodying the early city of Chicago with its history relating to the city's west side and the Austin community, and to Warner's residency in Chicago as one of its earliest settlers at the time of its incorporation in 1837, and continuing to Warner's legacy and his strong stance on abolition, reflected in numerous events hosted at Warner's Hall, Warner's Hall once being located at the southwest corner of Randolph and Clark Streets in the Loop, which was destroyed 150 years ago in the Chicago fire and is now part of the Daley Center. Clearly, these histories associated with Seth Warner, linked together with his home, which is thought to be the oldest building in the Austin community and dating to 1869, and noted as red rated in the Chicago Historic Resources Survey, should be a designated landmark. We at Preservation Chicago are both grateful to offer and support this Chicago landmark designation, and we are so very honored to have worked with the current longtime owner, Mr. James Bowers, and his wife for several years towards this remarkable designation. Realizing this amazing history relating to Seth Warner and the Seth Warner House, we at Preservation Chicago would like to see many other pre-fire Chicago buildings in our city without landmarks protections honored and given Chicago landmark designation, with many of these being located on Chicago's south and west sides, with a great concentration of them being in the Hyde Park community. We are here as your partners at Preservation Chicago and glad to assist towards this vision. And we thank you again for your consideration of the Seth Warner House as a designated Chicago landmark. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Also, I'd like to, before we go on, I'd like to make note to welcome Commissioner Cox and Commissioner Ponce, who's joined us. And so two people have signed up to speak on agenda item number 3, the final landmark recommendation for the Little Village Arch. And we'd like to hear from Julie Sawicki. Ms. Sawicki.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Very nice to see you after the year that we've all endured. My name is Julie Sawicki, and I am president of the Society of St. Adalberts, and I'm here today to testify enthusiastically in favor of landmarking the Little Village Arch. In fact, in preparation for today, I drove past the arch yesterday because every time I drive past the arch, it resonates with me because I am actually first generation Polish American, but I do know what this arch represents to the Mexican American community that has settled in the Little Village area. And this is representative of their immigrant history in this city, in this beautiful city of ours, and it is representative of their achievements. And I think that sometimes we forget in the United States here that we are a nation of immigrants, and particularly Chicago, where we have so many ethnicities. I am actually first generation Polish American, still very, very close to my roots. And I understand the struggles of my ancestors and what they went through to come here. And it is a very similar story to the Mexican American community here in Chicago. And it needs to be recognized. It needs to be celebrated. We cannot forget, because as the generations continue and as we get further and further from our roots, we really forget how we got here and who paved the way for us. So I think landmarking is not only the recognition of buildings or structures that are aesthetically pleasing, that may be architecturally significant, but I think it is incredibly important to recognize these structures that are that speak to our history, and they are visual reminders of where we came from, which is why I so passionately support the landmarking for the Polish immigrants of our historical churches like St. Adalbert's. And I would be remiss not to say that I'm a little disappointed that, considering the urgency of the St. Adalbert's situation, that does not appear on today's agenda for a preliminary vote. And I urge the commissioners respectfully, from the bottom of my heart, to please move on this matter, because it is in great jeopardy. And I applaud the work that you do. I know that the commission and the staff is overwhelmed with this, but I think we have to champion these efforts where others are not. We're a young country, and we cannot be destroying our history and that of our immigrant ancestors. Thank you all for this opportunity to speak before you.
Thank you, Ms. Sawicki. Can we hear from Mary Lou Seidel?
Hi, it's Mary Lou. Can you hear me?
We sure can. Thank you, Mary Lou.
Thanks so much. Good afternoon, commissioners. I'm Mary Lou Seidel, Director of Community Outreach for Community Engagement. I know my own title, for Preservation Chicago. We're thrilled to see the landmark designation of the Little Village Arch at 3100 West 26th Street by Mexican-American architect Adrian Lozano. This cultural heritage symbol honors the Latinx community and literally welcomes people to the remarkable neighborhood of Little Village. It is great to see the first architect of Mexican descent honored with a landmark designation. We look forward to seeing more diverse and culturally significant works being landmarked going forward. This commission has been most forward-thinking as it considers landmark designations, and it's remarkable to get formal recognition of a site like this designed by, for, and with the Latinx communities of Chicago. Preservation Chicago would be honored to work with the Little Village community and Alderperson George Cardenas as they move forward with plans to restore and maintain this important landmark. Thank you to the commissioners, DPD staff, and advocates who helped bring this designation up for a vote today. Chicago is a remarkable, diverse city, and heritage landmarks such as the Little Village Arch help tell the story of that glory. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Seidel. That is all the members of the general public who signed up to speak for the commission meeting. We'll now go through the agenda. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting of the regular meeting of October 7th, 2021. Those were in your packages. I'd like to request a motion to approve the minutes if there's no discussion on those.
So moved.
Anybody? All right, that was Commissioner Tolliver.
Yes.
Okay, is there a second?
Seconded by Commissioner Cox, who's
Thank you,
present.
Commissioner Prince.
Yeah.
Thank you. Instead of going through the roll call, I'll just ask all in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 And anybody
Aye.
opposed? Nobody opposed. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the report from the Department of Planning and Development on the Seth Warner House at 631 North Central Avenue in the 37th Ward. And Commissioner Cox, it's your show.
Excellent. Thank you. Just one moment here while I get my juggle the screen and the images. So I am not seeing the screen. Now I am. Okay. 1 second. Okay, I am now seeing the screen. So commissioners, thank you. And this is DPD's report for the Seth Warner House. Department of Planning and Development finds that the proposed landmark designation of the Seth Warner House supports the city's overall planning goals for the surrounding community area and is consistent with the city's governing policies and plans. The Seth Warner House is in the Austin community area, one of 10 neighborhoods that are part of the department's Invest Southwest Community Improvement Initiative. Our goal is to reactivate neighborhood cores that have historically served as focal points for pedestrian activity, shopping, services, transportation, public spaces, and quality life amenities for residents. In Austin, the priority corridor is Chicago Avenue, running from Kilpatrick Avenue to the west, to the east, to Austin Boulevard on the west. The Warner House is located a block away from the corridor at the Red Star. As part of the Invest Southwest initiative, the department has focused on another designated Chicago landmark in the Austin community, the long vacant Laramie State Bank, a half a mile northeast of the Seth Warner House. Last March, DPD announced this winning proposal from the Austin United Alliance. The proposed $37.5 million project will renovate the landmark structure with commercial uses that include a blues museum, a bank branch, a cafe, a business incubator. The adjacent land will be redeveloped with a mixed income, multi-story rental building that includes a green roof, public plaza, social spaces, and outdoor art. Our planning work in Austin identifies broad community assets there, including its designated Chicago landmarks. Designation of the Seth Warner House will add yet another welcome cultural asset to Austin. The plan also acknowledges design excellence principles that guide the department's work. Aspects of these principles include strengthening the culture of our communities and committing to cultural longevity. Both principles are manifest in the proposed designation of the Warner House as a Chicago landmark. So in conclusion, the Department of Planning and Development finds that the proposed landmark designation of the Seth Warner House supports the city's overall planning goals for the surrounding community area and is consistent with the city's governing policies and plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cox. Does the other members of the commission have any questions for Commissioner Cox or Matt Crawford on this project? The only question I had was the turret on the top of this house, the condition of that and the roof. Either
Chairman Wong, this is Matt
Yes.
Crawford. I don't know if you can hear me.
We sure can. Thank you.
Right. So the top
Cupola
portion, yeah, the cupola at the top of the building is actually a restoration of an original feature that was removed. I think this was put back around the 1980s by a previous owner. And then the roof, I think, has been replaced in the more recent past. Mr. James Bowers, the owner with his wife Cynthia, is on the meeting. I don't know if he wanted to say a few words. He has been in the house for a long time, and they have been working on maintaining and restoring features. You can obviously see that this is for Chicago, this is an ancient structure, so it does need continuous maintenance and repair. But he's on the call. I don't know if you wanted to say.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Crawford. I was going to call on Mr. Bowers in a second. I just wanted to get the staff piece on this. So, Mr. Bowers, you are on this call. Would you like to say a few words, please?
Certainly, I would. This is James Bowers. I assume you can hear me?
We sure can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My wife and I have been proud residents of the Seth Warner House in Austin for 35 years now. We've lived there longer than any previous residents, including Seth Warner. We moved to Austin in 1985 for two reasons. First of all, It was a breathtaking interior with the black walnut entry staircase and 10-foot black walnut doors, 6 marble fireplaces, original light fixtures, and running plaster moldings. And second of all, and just as important, we were taking a small step in breaking down the racial barriers that have plagued this country and this city for hundreds of years. The history of the Austin neighborhood is a microcosm of the history of race relations in America. From the federal government driving out the last of the Potawatomi Indians in 1835 and simultaneously granting hundreds of acres in what is now Austin to a white land developer, to the complete change of racial makeup in Austin in 1970 from 100% white to 100% black, fueled by redlining real estate tactics following the second wave of the Great Migration and the murder of Dr. King. Race is one of the factors that also helped preserve this magnificent structure. During the 1930s, the home became a well-known music school. During the 1970s, the home was purchased and the music school continued by John Hunter, an African-American with a booming voice and a charismatic presence. It is comforting to my wife and I to know that Seth Warner, an ardent abolitionist and patron of Frederick Douglass, was drawn to the home by some of the same issues of race that existed 150 years ago. The house was built in 1869, and I have a vision of Seth Warner and his wife sitting on the back porch in 1871, watching in horror as the 100-foot flames burned down their beloved Warner Hall near the Daly Center. When we purchased the Seth Warner house, it needed a lot of attention. The cupola, the structure on top, was boarded up, but we found the pieces of the windows in the attic and restored them ourselves. A new roof was put on about 2 years ago. Legend has it that the bricks in the house are Milwaukee cream brought to Chicago by wagon during a brickmaker strike here, so we removed most of the unoriginal red paint from the bricks. Parts of the roof, when we purchased it, were covered with 8 layers of roll roofing held in place by 6-inch long nails. The kitchen ceiling was repaired using ornate tin tiles that I personally tore out of the old Rialto Theater, a burlesque house that used to stand near State and Congress. Most of the original exterior brackets and trim, which we've started work on, are still stored in the basement, and there's probably a year of work left to finish that. Probably the most challenging experience that we've had was ridding the neighborhood of the crack house that stood next door for several years. It was a horrific experience and a horrific time. My mantra in restoration of the Seth Warner house is that it is not the product that is important, but rather the process. I have come to know hundreds of neighbors over the past 35 years. I have focused my civil rights law practice on the Austin community, on the commercial Chicago Avenue commercial corridor. I have a commercial building where we have the first African-American travel agency on the west side, brick and mortar ever. I'm opening an antique store that used to be frequented. The building used to be frequented by Tyrone Davis, so we've named it Turn Back the Hands of Time Antiques. We've also started a not-for-profit that takes youth from Austin on excursions to help them get out of their heads and stop some of the senseless violence that we experience. The furthest trip we've taken is to West Africa, Ghana. In conclusion, we would like to thank the Chicago Commission on Landmarks, as well as our partner, Preservation Chicago, which has been instrumental in helping save Austin's architectural heritage, including the magnificent Art Deco Laramie Bank. I'd be happy to answer any questions. The house will be here 150 years from now if it is preserved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowers. It's wonderful, and thank you for the wonderful history as well. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Bowers? And seeing none, I'd like to call for a motion to accept the department's report for the Seth Warner House and take the next step in the designation process to request consent from the property owner. Is there a motion?
So
moved.
moved, Commissioner Burns.
Okay, Commissioner Burns, and then Commissioner Hughes, second. I'll do the roll call. Commissioner Jekowitz,
Yes.
Commissioner Cox,
Yes.
Commissioner Osmond.
Yes, and I just want to pass on my extreme gratitude to the owners for all their hard work.
Thank you, Commissioner Osmond. Commissioner Ponce,
Yes.
Commissioner Tolliver.
Yes.
I am also a yes. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Bowers. Good luck, and We'll see you soon on the final stage here. All right, the next item on the agenda is the final landmark recommendation for the Little Village Arch at 3100 West 26th Street in the 12th Ward. This is Alderman Cardenas's ward. And I'll call on Matt Crawford for the report.
Thank you, Chairman Wong. Good afternoon, commissioners. In September, you initiated a preliminary landmark recommendation for the Little Village Arch. And last month, you heard a report from Commissioner Cox supporting the designation. The Chicago Department of Transportation has since consented to landmark designation. So today you can consider a final landmark recommendation to City Council. To reorient you, the arch is located 5 miles southwest of the loop in the South Lawndale community area generally, and more specifically, the Little Village neighborhood. So you have preliminarily determined that the arch meets 3 criteria for Chicago landmark designation, including criterion 1 for heritage. The arch marks a 2-mile stretch of West 26th Street, though many of the buildings on that street were built prior to the neighborhood becoming Latino. The arch identifies the living heritage and culture of the current community. Here are a few images of West 26th Street, which is the commercial and cultural heart of Little Village, or La Villita. On top of caring for this historic neighborhood, the community has added and preserved its own significant layer of culture and traditions there through language, food, and murals. We also found that the designation also meets criterion 4 as a unique work of architecture. Here are a few images of the arch under construction in 1990. The idea of the arch is attributed to then Alderman, now Congressman Chuy Garcia, and both the City of Chicago and the Little Village Chamber of Commerce contributed to its construction. Soon after the arch was completed, then President of Mexico, Carlos Salinas, visited Chicago, which has the 2nd largest Mexican community in the United States. He spoke at a rally of around 2,000 people near the newly completed arch. And as a gift to the city and the community, Salinas presented a bronze clock manufactured in Mexico, and it is now installed in the crown of the arch with faces on both the east and west sides. The arch resembles the arched entrances found in Mexican colonial architecture shown here. Examples are found in open chapels built in the 16th century, as well as arched gateways in Mexican towns from the colonial era, as well as haciendas. With its clay tile roof, stucco towers, and tiled span, the Little Village Arch exhibits materials and design details that are typically found in Mexico. It is unique in Chicago, and it may be the only such example north of the Rio Grande River. Designation also meets criterion 5 for its association with artist and architect Adrian Lozano. Lozano was a Chicago artist and architect of Mexican descent whose career has not been well documented. What we do know is that in addition to the arch, Lozano contributed to 2 other buildings treasured by the Mexican-American community in Chicago, both in Pilsen. The first is the Benito Juarez Community Academy, where Lozano served as the architect of record in 1977. The massing of the building and its sloped walls evoke pre-Hispanic temples, and the design is the only example of pre-Columbian influenced architecture in Chicago. The second significant building designed by Lozano is the National Museum of Mexican Art. Here, Lozano designed the adaptive use of former Park District natatorium into a space for fine art. The geometric frieze is inspired by pre-Columbian architecture from archaeological finds at Mitla, Mexico. Lozano was also an artist. At age 20, he painted this mural titled The Progress of Mexico, located inside the Benito Juarez Club Room at Hull House. Though the work no longer survives, it is significant as the first manifestation of Mexican muralism in Chicago, a public art movement that continues to thrive in the city. In addition to the landmark criteria, the arch also meets the separate integrity criterion. It remains in its original location, and the neighborhood commercial street setting and the Mexican population continues to form its context over the past 2 decades. The arch is located in the 12th Ward, and Alderman Cardenas has expressed his support for the proposed designation. As noted earlier, CDOT is also very supportive of landmarking the arch. Staff recommends that the significant features be identified as all elevations, including the roof line of the arch. You have a final landmark recommendation before you, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I think Representative from CDOT, Dan Burke, is also at this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Does the commission have any questions for Matt at this time? I don't see any hands. If not, Alderman Cardenas, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, of course, and I thank the commission. I'm multitasking, so you won't see my face, but you're gonna hear my voice. It's a great presentation from the folks that are involved in part of our history, not just from Mexico, but also Little Village and what our culture really represents in our community. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak on that. As many know, that we approached obviously DPD, and I want to thank the Commissioner Cox for his hard work and dedication to bring this to finality and his entire team, so the Little Village can finally have this proud historic edifice recognized before you. Obviously, it is well known that 26th Street is only second to Michigan Avenue when it comes to to revenue, sales taxes, and receipts. Little Village is it's a beacon of hope for many. It's been the entry point of many immigrants. I know it was for my family. So we look forward of art and culture for us. And with this designation, we hope that more can come of it. I know we've secured $300,000 for initial reconstruction and repair of this raised edifice. And I've spoken with Dan Burke and other folks so that this could get attention immediately once upon this passage. And so I could, in the commissioners, and of course, I yield to you, but I just want to say thank you. I want to thank also CDOT for working on this and also creating a streetscape design that reflects our values and reflects our culture. I thank you, and I look for passage of this item.
Thank you, Alderman. I also see Mr. Burke. Would you like to say anything?
Yes, I would. Thank you. Dan Burke, Managing Deputy Commissioner, CDOT. On behalf of Commissioner Gia Biaggi and the City Department entrusted with stewardship of the public way, I'm here today to state our emphatic support of the landmark designation of the Little Village Arch. It's a prominent cultural and community gateway arch that has become synonymous with the Little Village neighborhood and the broader Chicago Mexican-American community. We believe the arch fully satisfies the necessary criteria for designation as a Chicago landmark, and as such would request a favorable determination by the commission. We look forward to working with Alderman Cardenas and the community in our stewardship of this historic asset. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Does the commission have any questions for Alderman Cardenas? And not seeing any hands. This is a wonderful project. If there are no other questions or discussion, I'd like to request a motion to adopt the final landmark recommendation for the Little Village Arch. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Commissioner Tolliver, and is there a second?
Second by Commissioner Osmond.
Commissioner Osmond is the second. I'll do the roll call. Commissioner Jekowitz.
Yes.
Commissioner Cox.
Yes.
Commissioner Burns.
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes.
Yes.
Commissioner Ponce.
Yes.
And I am a yes also. The motion carries unanimously. This is a wonderful project. Thank you for all the support, and good luck. We will see this for years to come. So this is great. The final item on the agenda is the Permit Review Committee reports. And so this is for the report reviewed at the October 7th meeting. Commissioner Jekowitz, please.
Thank you, Chairman. The Permit Review Committee reviewed 3 projects at its October 7th, 2021 meeting. All 3 projects were approved with conditions. The report summarizing the scope of the proposed projects and the committee's decisions was included in your packets. This report is for your information and for the record.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Larry, do you have a report?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
For the month of October, staff reviewed 166 permit applications. 3 of these applications relate to projects reviewed by the Permit Review Committee. A total of 178 reviews were performed by staff, and the average number of days to issue the approval or corrections was 3.2 days.
Thank you, Larry. Does the commission have any questions for Larry or Commissioner Jekowitz on this item? If not, before we adjourn, I'd like to introduce a new member of the Historic Preservation staff, Eilish Tuffy. Eilish was formerly with DPD's Regional Planning Division and is a graduate of the Historic Preservation Program at the School of the Art Institute. She worked in municipal planning and preservation in Cambridge, Massachusetts and San Francisco after not-for-profit work at the statewide preservation organization, Landmarks Illinois. Welcome, Eilish. Would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Thank you, Chairman Wong. As many of you may remember, in the mayor's initial 100 days in office, the department conducted an evaluation of the city's full catalog of designated landmarks to better understand the distribution of historic themes amongst that catalog, which I helped Matt Crawford assemble and present to this body. What we realized in that commission is that the commission has done a fairly good job of recognizing a broad range of architectural styles and periods in history. And as the themes of the National Trust's annual conference, which many of you may be catching sessions of this week, there is a broader push amongst the field for promoting equity and justice through historic preservation. And some of the projects that the division will be further in exploring is how to use thematic frameworks, theme studies, and context statements as tools for recognizing Chicago's social and cultural history. These are used internationally, regionally, and at the local level to help foster an inclusive approach to assessing places and expanding significance beyond great architectural works. So at the direction and championing of senior management, I hope to contribute to some of that work, and I look forward to presenting some of that to the commission in the future.
Thank you, Eilish. That's wonderful. Okay, with no other, does any of the, by the way, does the commission have any questions? Oh, Commissioner Cox, please.
No, I just also wanted to welcome Eilish Tuffy to the Historic Preservation team. We've been strategizing her joining this team for quite some time, and as a result of her contribution, we're going to see a more proactive posture that we can take to really embrace all parts of our city. We're seeing over the course of our docket glimpse of that future in some of the wonderful properties that we've been able to landmark, not just the one today, but the Emmett Till House and the Muddy Waters House, and increasingly seeing the broad representation of all of Chicago's geography in the historic preservation cohort. So this additional bandwidth will allow us to do more things, and so I'm just thrilled that Eilish has agreed to join the team. So welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Very happy to be back.
And quite an asset as well. I had the pleasure of working with her in the neighborhood character districts, and very impressive. There
I have
being
a-
no, I'm sorry, was there somebody?
Yeah, that was
Oh,
Commissioner
Commissioner
Tolliver.
Tolliver, please.
I have a comment to our new staff person and Commissioner Cox. When we start thinking about designating, well, I should say as we continue thinking about designating landmarks of noted African Americans in Chicago, I would hope we would expand it beyond just entertainers. We have role models such as, for example, the late Patricia Roberts Harris, who was ambassador to Luxembourg, Secretary of Housing in the Carter administration, grew up on King Drive in the 60s, around 60th Street. I would like for us to have a variety of role models for our young people, not just entertainers. So I would hope that research would be devoted to other persons beyond the entertainment field.
Absolutely. I think we want to have a representation of the broad cross-section of contributions that people of color have made. But in order to do that, we need the team reinforced. So I think that is in place. And I think you will continue to see a broader definition of what cultural and historic preservation means in Chicago. So really thrilled to be at this point. But thank you for the comment.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I would just add that one of the first steps of the work that we'll be embarking upon is to do some initial community outreach, because our goal is to make sure that we're finding the local experts within community so that they have the ability to tell their own stories. So we will hopefully get to those gems within community from that feedback.
Thank you, Alish. Thank you, Commissioner Tolliver. Thank you, Commissioner Cox. If there are no other comments or questions.
I have a comment.
Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Hughes, please.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to encourage all of us to go to MSI, the Museum of Science and Industry, in these next coming months, because there is an exhibit up right now that's highlighting Black architects. To Commissioner Tolliver's point, there is some incredible work that's featured there, and folks that we should keep our eye on for their contributions to the built environment, including local folks here. And I also got to do some videography around the Emmett Till property and talk more to our work on that. So highly recommend us go check that out as well. Alish, welcome aboard. I think that's a great starting point for you as well, with us trying to diversify. To Commissioner Tolliver's point, I fully support his opinion and agree wholeheartedly about us having a much larger footprint beyond entertainment as a Black caucus and culture.
Thank you, Commissioner Hughes. And I understand there were some trees planted last Sunday. So
there was, yes.
And some bigger trees, actually, which, by the way, were donated by our friends at Related Midwest for that project. So, okay.
Chairman, I now realize there's another public service announcement that I probably should share. Some of you know that that there has been a recent exhibit on the demolition of the Garrick Theater, Sullivan's Theater at an organization called the Wrightwood. And to this evening, they've invited architecture historian Jack Quinlan and architecture historian Daniel Bluestone to a panel called Put the City Up, Tear the City Down. And it's a virtual program, but it's going to talk about the history, the role that the Garrick Theater played in galvanizing the preservation community to preserve community assets. And it's a two-part program. And I am going to be on a panel in the second part with architect Juan Moreno and the preservation advocate for the Muddy Waters House, Chandra Cooper, is also. So as you can tell from the lineup, it's going to really speak to the issues that we've been talking about today. And that event is from 6:30, and it's a Zoom event, so anyone can attend. You can look it up from the Wrightwood Foundation, I think. So.
Commissioner, I'm just going to correct you. It's at 5:30 to 7:30.
Okay, 5:30. Thank you. 5:30 to 7:30. But again, I think it should be a really fascinating exhibit and panel discussion. The exhibit is absolutely exquisite, and the panel should be equally interesting this evening.
Thank you, Commissioner Cox. Love these public announcements. This is great. We get it all right here. Okay, if there are no other announcements and no other questions, I will call for a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
So moved, Commissioner Hughes. Second?
Second, Commissioner Ponce.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Or raise your hand.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. The Permit Review Committee will begin.
1:40. 1:40, okay?
1:40, sounds good. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, take care.